Good morning. Hope everybody had a nice Labor Day weekend. It's looks like another lovely day. It is Tuesday, day after Labor Day, and I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things, some science, and I've got some video for you that I hope you'll enjoy. But science. First, we're going to go into some biology, and then after that will be some chemistry. First off, on the biology note, I want to talk to you about a little critter known as the Varroa mite. More recently renamed the Varroa destructor mite. Named so because of the destruction that it does. Now, I'll tell you a little backstory on this critter. For thousands, probably millions of years, this mite evolved right alongside the Asian honeybee, and literally cannot survive without the existence of the honeybee. It doesn't live off anything else. It's a parasitic mite that feeds on the fat bodies of honeybees, and the Asian honeybees evolved right alongside it and learned how to contend with it, keep it at bay, live with it without it destroying them. And so the way this little jerk works, this mite gets onto the bee's body, either jumps onto it on a flower or brought into the hive by a bee coming on drones. Drones are very social. They visit other hives and may pick it up there. They get on the body and they hitch a ride, and they crawl up into a place where the bee doesn't know it's at, can't get rid of it. They're tiny little things. You figure how big a bee is, and this is a tiny little mite that lives on the bee. Little eight-legged little thing, 8 legs up the front of their head. They kind of look like a bean with a row of legs across the front. Creepy looking thing. And they get up in there and they chew in and they feed on the fat bodies of the bee. They don't suck blood, they suck fat. They ride on that bee back to the hive, and then once in the hive, they have figured out exactly how the reproductive cycle works in the beehive, and that's what they exploit for their own reproductive cycle. So, gets on a nurse bee because the nurse bees are in the nursery. They are where the brood are forming, where the new bees are happening. They ride around until they see a cell at the prime moment. That prime moment is when the cell is about to be capped so that bee can finish forming. So the way bees work, queen bee lays an egg in a cell. That egg lives in there as an egg for 3 days. Then it hatches. When it hatches, now it's a larvae. And that larvae lives for twice as long as a larvae, 6 days. Double that number. 3 days as an egg, 6 days as a larvae. And then at that precise moment, and these mites have it exactly figured out, it's time for that larvae to start becoming a pupa. At that moment, the nurse bees will cap over that cell to protect it in there, and a cocoon is formed around that larvae so it can become a pupa. The mite drops off of a nurse bee and falls down into the cell and hides behind the larvae, down in the goo, the food. There's gel in there that the larvae is, feeding on. The mite hides down in there, gets capped in with it, and now she climbs up and she chews through the silk sac and starts feeding on the fat bodies of that still forming bee. She's just becoming a pupa at this point. But the mite is already feeding on her, so you're already going to have probably some deformities, possibly some weaknesses in that bee once it's formed, because it's got a parasite already on it while it's still forming in the cell. So then, within the first 10 hours, she lays an egg. That first egg hatches, and it's a male. She continues laying eggs every 30 hours until she lays between 3 and 6 eggs. After that first male egg, all the rest are females. They sexually mature very quickly after hatching. The male mates with his sisters, and now you've got between 2 and 5 fertile females in there, and now they're all feeding on that pupa. So pupa is a pupa for 12 days, and then it chews out of the cell and emerges as a bee. Maybe a not healthy bee because it's covered in parasites. As soon as that happens, these parasites come out and jump onto the bees and now ride around looking for more cells to invade the exact same way. So their numbers multiply very rapidly within the hive. And we did not have a problem with Varroa mites in this country. In fact, most of the world didn't have a problem with it. They just existed in Asia. In fact, they were first discovered by scientists in right around 1900 on the island of Java. And that's where they were discovered. They'd been there probably a very, very long time, but very small, had not been seen by scientists. They're not on every bee. They're only on a small percentage of them, but enough to do a lot of damage. So in the 1970s, they turned up in Europe and rapidly covered Europe. They did not come to North America until 1987. Now, if you recall colony collapse disorder, where we started losing all of our honeybees and they didn't know why, and they're trying to figure out what's killing off of our honeybees. Well, largely it was the Varroa destructor mite. And it's not the mite itself that actually kills off the colonies, although it does weaken them. The mites carry 20 different diseases that can infect the bees. And one of those, one of the worst ones, is, well, it's two of them. They're really bad. One's a paralyzing disease that a paralyzed bee does no work. You can destroy a whole colony with that. There's another one called deformed wing virus, where their wings are literally deformed and these bees can't fly. If a bee can't fly, it can't do its job and the colony collapses. Varroas are disease carriers, like mosquitoes carrying malaria or Zika. If you can wipe out the mosquito or control the mosquito problem, you can keep your people healthy. Same is true with Varroa. If you can kill off the Varroa or keep them at bay, you can have healthier bees. Eventually, see what happened here is our bees, and around here are Western honeybees that come out of Europe, the European style honeybees, Russian honeybees. They are not evolved alongside this mite. They don't know how to contend with it on their own. And eventually they may learn to. They may evolve to deal with the Varroa mite on their own. But as of yet, it has not happened. And there are scientists and people working with certain traits in bees, trying to breed stronger varieties that can deal and contend with Varroa on their own. In the meantime, we're looking for ways to kill off the Varroa with treatments. And the first couple of treatments that came out, the Varroa rapidly became immune to it. They evolved to withstand what we were trying to kill them with. But they didn't arrive here until 1987. In Europe and in Canada, they started using something called oxalic acid. And oxalic acid has been around for a very long time. It's an all-natural product. It's an acid made completely from organics. And they didn't legalize it for use for treating bees in the United States until 2015. So you literally have from 87 to 2015 Varroa mites being treated by methods that were far less effective. And we've had a real problem with a lack of honeybees in this country because of it. So now oxalic acid, which is used as a wood bleach and for removing rust stains from concrete, and it's got a lot of different uses. But it turns out it's harmless to the bees and very, very destructive to the Varroa mites. And it absorbs to the pads of their little feet, and they can't hang on to the bees' air surfaces anymore. And they don't really even know how it harms the Varroa for certain, but they know that it does, and it's been doing it for a long time. A couple different ways to apply it, but the best way is by using vapor. And here's where we get into some chemistry. When you convert a solid to a vapor without passing through the liquid stage, like normally with water, you go ice, water, steam. That's vaporization, is from water to steam. Sublimation is the word for when you go directly from a solid, bypass the liquid state, and go straight to a vapor. Sublimation is how we convert these oxalic acid crystals, or it's a crystalline powder, goes rapidly, explodes into a vapor, and we blow this fog of acid into the beehive. Does not hurt the bees. They actually immediately start fanning it around. They don't love it, but they quickly forget that it's in there. They fan it all around. This fog goes all up into the hive, settles on all the surfaces, and recrystallizes back into little acid crystals. And then it's on everything. It's on the bees, it's on the comb, it's on the walls of the hive. The bees get busy starting to clean it out of there. It takes them about 2 days to get it all groomed off of each other and off of the surfaces and out of the hive. But in that time, many of the Varroa mite have dropped off of the bees and died. And then, working with that whole cycle, you remember now the pupa emerges after 12 days, and these mites come out and jump on other bees, wait to go back in. If you treat the hive and then the bees clean all the acid out of there within a couple of days, anything that was any Varroa mite that was sealed in a cell with a bee did not get treated. The acid, they are safe from the acid. It cannot get into a sealed cell. So any Varroa that were already down in with a pupa are safe. So they emerge into a hive, and if they do it after 2-3 days, then they're probably safe, and they will potentially get back into another cell with another pupa, and the cycle continues. So we have to repeat the treatment. Typically it's done 3 times, 5-day interval or a 6-day interval or a 7-day interval. There's lots of arguments about how often to do it, but typically, or what I intend to do, is do a 5-day interval between the first and second treatment, and then a 6-day interval for the third treatment. In doing this, I'm going to wipe out 90% of any Varroa that are in my hive. And I've never seen Varroa, never a one. I might not have any, but I've got a tray in the bottom of my hive. After the first treatment, after a day or 2, if I pull that tray out and I see dead Varroa on that tray, then I know that I have them, and I'll continue treating. If there are no Varroa on that tray, I will not follow through with the second and third treatment. There's no point in doing it. And then regardless of what I find, I will do another single treatment later this late fall, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I will do a treatment. It's a very good time to do it for other reasons that coincides with the reproductive cycle of the honeybees, but it's an ideal time to do it. But let me show you really quick what I'm going to be using. This machine here is the Sublimator, and it's got a digital control there and a cup where the acid goes in, and we'll go ahead and turn this on and let it start heating up. It heats up pretty quick. I know the display is weird on camera. It's probably blinking and doing some weird things here, but it's going to rapidly, right now it's outdoor temperature 65 degrees, but it's going to rapidly climb to 400 degrees. And once we get to 400, I'm going to demonstrate how it works. But PPE. I have to wear a gas mask when I'm using this acid, because while it doesn't hurt the bees at all, you don't want it in your eyes, and you certainly don't want it in your lungs. So I have a full face gas mask that I wear. But my demonstration right now, I'm not going to use oxalic acid. I'm just going to show you with a little bit of water. It'll quickly convert it to steam, and it'll demonstrate how the machine works. And it's pretty much the same idea. And then you'll see in the video what I actually treat the hive. Doesn't take but a couple of minutes to do it. And I actually just finished it a little bit ago, so that footage is coming up. So these are the cups. So this is the cap that goes over that bowl, and this particular one has a little bit of water in it, but typically you'd have a measured dose of oxalic acid crystals go into the cup, and you have this sitting at the hive waiting to go. Get everything all lined up ahead of time. And then you'll take your device and you turn it upside down and you lower the hot bowl over the cup. I'll show you that. It's exactly how I'm going to do this. We are just about to temperature here. And I should probably be wearing gloves because I may burn my fingers on camera here. But we are basically there. So you take the device upside down and you lower it onto the cup with the acid inside. And since this is water, it's going to expand. I'm going to keep my finger on it so it doesn't blow the cap off. So then I have a little, I've got a 1/4-inch hole drilled in the back of the hive with a screw plugging it. It's been there all season. You'll see it in all my videos. These stainless steel eye bolts sticking out of the back of the hive. And that is there as a doorway to access with this machine. That's the whole purpose for it. So pull out the screw, open up the 1/4-inch hole. The bees are all locked in the hive. I've sealed them in with a wet washcloth across the entrance. So we're not just locking the bees in, we're trying to lock the vapors in as well. Poke this into the hole, and we turn it over, and rapidly the crystals are converted. We give it a little tap, make sure all the crystals fall down in. They're rapidly sublimated into a vapor that is injected into the hive, and it rises up. The bees rapidly start fanning, and they circulate it everywhere, and then It recrystallizes on all the surfaces. And just like that, we leave them be sealed in there for another 15 minutes. Time for everything to cool down and settle and get thoroughly circulated. And then you uncork the hive and let the bees back out. And it's kind of funny. I did 2 hives. Well, I have 2 hives. I did both of them. And in one hive, they were just chill, you know, and they were anxious to get out for sure. But the other hive, it was like, well, it was like somebody turned on a fire hose. I opened up that door, and they just come screaming out of that hole. Well, they're anxious to get to work. They've been locked in. They wanted to be out doing bee stuff for a couple of hours, and they've been locked in there. So, yeah, it was just crazy how they came out. But the hum, the noise they made, I didn't think I would have to put my bee suit on for that. And after I heard the noise they were making in there, I decided I better suit up. I had a feeling that once I opened up that door, I was going to get blasted with perturbed honeybees, and that's not a good thing. So anyway, there you go. Enjoy the video, and yeah, that's how we treat for Varroa mites.